because she must have gotten hurt somewhere to be spouting such nonsense. As Ina steps in to hold back a vengeful Yu Jung, our hero reflects on the fact that he has no idea what kind of ripple effect his actions will have on the future. In this rapidly changing environment of the Magic Academy, he resolves to prepare diligently if he wants to maintain his edge and stay one step ahead of everyone. Thinking quickly, Yu Jung breaks free from Ina's hold, then playfully wraps the towel around Jay Hyun's neck with a mischievous smile on her face. Our hero promptly removes the towel, only to throw it over her head and vigorously mess up her perfectly styled hair. Yu Jung starts letting out a stream of curses as her aura flares up like an inferno, demanding to know if he has any idea just how much time she spent on her hair this morning, then asks if he has some kind of death wish. Unfazed, Jay Hyun tells her he's sorry, but then cheekily comments that it doesn't really make much of a difference anyway. This remark only fuels her anger, and she furiously asks if he's calling her ugly, and it's at this precise moment that Jay Hyun realizes he's gone too far. He immediately spins around and makes a desperate run for it, with an enraged Yu Jung hot on his heels, all while Ina watches the scene with great amusement. Ina thinks to herself about how incredibly close the two of them really are. As the pair of friends dashes past Soo Hyuk, he instantly recognizes Jay Hyun and wonders just how that scoundrel managed to reach level 10. As he's staring, a friend named Kim Min-soo approaches to greet him, asking what has him so deep in thought. Soo Hyuk then demands that Min-soo tell him everything he knows about the guy currently getting his hair yanked by that girl. Although Min-soo questions why Soo Hyuk is ordering him around like a servant, he complies and explains that Jay Hyun is the first student in the history of this Magic Academy to secure first place in the freshman hunt as a pure magician. Soo Hyuk retorts that he already knows that, but what he truly wants to know is where a guy with that kind of power came from so suddenly. However, Min-soo can only shrug, as he doesn't have that answer. The more Soo Hyuk mulls it over, the less sense it makes to him. There's something undeniably strange about this Jay Hyun fellow. He's convinced that whatever secret Jay Hyun hides is the key to his power. Meanwhile, Min-soo silently reflects on how unaccustomed he is to this new, arrogant Soo Hyuk, especially since he knew a very different version of him when they were younger. Eventually, he tells Soo Hyuk that Jay Hyun has already proven his capabilities on 2 separate occasions. Therefore, there's no point in digging for some mystery, especially since cheating in these trials is virtually impossible. Soo Hyuk, however, arrogantly informs him that it's impossible for someone to be stronger than him unless they are, in fact, cheating. This declaration stuns Min-soo, who privately thinks that Soo Hyuk couldn't win against Ina or Yu Jung either, but he wisely keeps that thought to himself. In the end, he simply advises Soo Hyuk not to be unreasonable, pointing out that he wouldn't win against Jay Hyun even if he were to die and be resurrected, but his words fall on deaf ears. A short time later, Jay Hyun is on a video call with his wonderful teacher, and he asks if she called because she was curious to hear about what transpired during the freshman hunt. Jang-geun confirms that's exactly why, admitting it's far more interesting to hear the story from him directly. Beaming with excitement, he tells her he took first place, which makes her incredibly proud. She then notices that his apartment seems far too luxurious for a freshman, correctly suspecting that he must have earned a massive amount of points. With a smile, she congratulates him for taking the perfect first step inside Mu's Magic Academy, a place notorious for its difficulty. She tells him once more how proud she is of him. Our hero admits he's relieved, as he was genuinely worried she might scold him if he'd only managed to get second place. His honesty makes her giggle, and she then asks if there were any other cadets who managed to catch his eye during the hunt. Surprised by the question, Jay Hyun asks if she's planning on scouting them. She confirms that they are indeed considering it, and that they're also planning to reward him handsomely for any information he can provide. Jay Hyun explains that sharing the details isn't difficult, but he doubts he deserves a reward for something so simple, asking if she isn't being a bit too generous, but she insists that she's making this offer because she knows he would refuse even 10 times the amount if she waited until the future. At last, he relents. He names Ina, Yu Jung, and Han, identifying those 3 as the prime candidates for Yeonhwa to recruit. When he pauses before naming another person, Seong-yoon prompts him to speak, so he adds that he knows someone who isn't a freshman but would be an excellent recruit from the upperclassmen. Sunim promises to give him a grand welcome. After they the guildmaster contemplates the name Jay Hyun had mentioned, Lee Ji-sang, and recognizes him as the youngest son of Prax, the S-rank raider, Lee Jin. During their call, she had reminded Jay Hyun that Jay Sang isn't considered as talented as his siblings, and she is well aware that recruiting him might create issues with Lee Ji-sang's family guild, Zephyr. With such a considerable risk, Seong-yoon asked Jay Hyun if he was sure they should recruit the boy, and he confirmed it, certain that Jay Sang hides the potential to become the world's greatest alchemist in the near future. After their call concludes, Manager Sung informs her that Guild Master Miss Baekjeon has arrived. Seon-yoon tells him to escort her inside, so Miss Ji-yoon enters with Yeonju trailing behind her. As they step into the room, Seong-yoon comments that they arrived exactly on time. In response, Ji-yoon smoothly replies that time is also a very precious commodity to a merchant. Miss Ji-yoon extends her hand toward Guildmaster Si-yoon, remarking that it's been a while, but Si-yoon politely states that she doesn't believe they are close enough for such familiar greetings and invites her to take a seat. Once Ji-yoon is seated, her smile unwavering, she asks what the master of the Curator Guild could possibly want from her. Ji-yoon appears amused by Seong-yoon's directness, noting that becoming friends will truly be difficult, but but she confesses that she actually prefers it that way. Finally, Jay Hyun gets to the point, mentioning that Yeonhwa appears to be raising someone with exceptional skill. She then bluntly asks how much it would cost to purchase Jay Hyun. Seong-yoon replies that it's unfortunate, as the Yeonhwa Guild doesn't consider its members to be commodities that can be bought. She then suggests that Jay Hyun should look elsewhere. However, Jay Hyun slyly asks if the child himself would agree with that assessment. In response, Seong-yoon tells her there are some things that cannot be bought with money, remarking that Jay Hyun most likely wouldn't comprehend such a thing. At last, Jay Hyun replies that she never expected Seong-yoon to accept her offer anyway, and it's of no importance as she only came as a gesture of courtesy. Amused, Seong-yoon informs her that her brand of thoughtfulness is quite distasteful, but Jay Hyun just calls it a shame and decides to leave, seeing as it's getting late and Seong-yoon clearly has no interest in speaking with her. As she stands to take her leave, Seong-yoon retorts that she's glad she finally noticed the lack of interest, and Jay Hyun jokingly replies that a sharp eye is also a merchant's virtue. The next day, following an endurance test at the Mills Magic Academy, the cadets wait for the system to analyze the results of their trial. An Ho-yoon finishes in first place with 101 points, with Jay Hyun coming in second at 99 points. The outcome makes our boy hiss in frustration, though he had anticipated that he couldn't measure up to a combat prodigy like Ho-yoon. Nevertheless, he doesn't consider second place a poor result. In his mind, there's no need to be hasty, but he also keeps in mind that he has not yet reached his ultimate goal. When Jay Hyun turns toward the ladies, he can't help but notice their distressed expressions and Yoo-jung finally confronts him, demanding to know what he truly is and how a mere magic raider could possibly secure second place against An Hoi during an endurance test. As she presses for an answer, Jay Hyun calmly informs her that it's not strange at all. After all, he reveals, his training began as a warrior, but this explanation does little to quell Yoo-jung's suspicions as she tries to argue. Jay Hyun cuts her off, advising that in this magic academy, a singular focus on spellcasting is a mistake. She must also prioritize her physical conditioning. His words only serve to darken her expression, and she vows that one day she will prove he isn't as special as he believes himself to be. Before things can escalate, Ina quickly steps in to hold her back. Unbeknownst to them, Instructor Seoki is observing from a distance. He realizes that the chairman was right. Jay Hyun is a dangerous individual. The boy's muscular endurance is not something a magician should ever possess, which makes Seoki wonder what on earth he's truly planning. Shortly after, the students hear the chimes signaling the start of their next lesson, and Seoki announces that their second endurance trial will be the notorious AR evasion test. Jay Hyun's mind flashes back. He remembers this test from before his regression. He knows it was designed to push countless cadets to their absolute breaking point, separating the truly talented from the rest. Seoki begins to explain the rules. He informs them they will be gathering in a room equipped with state-of-the-art technology, known as the AR test room, where the AR combat measurement system will assess each cadet's capabilities through simulated battles against opponents generated within an augmented reality. Listening closely, Jay Hyun realizes that Instructor Seoki has no intention of making this easy for them. Normally, the objective would be to analyze attack patterns and eliminate monsters materialized by drones. However, since this is an endurance trial, the primary focus will be on assessing their evasion skills. That being said, successfully defeating any monsters will still result in a higher score. Seoki then distributes objects that resemble earphones. When Yoo-jung questions what they are, Jay Hyun explains that they are receivers designed to analyze and record the combat simulation. Acknowledging Jay Hyun's correct assessment, Seoki adds that the receiver is also the key to implementing the augmented reality. It works by stimulating the brain while using projectors to create the hyper-realistic illusion of a physical monster. Drone cameras project three-dimensional images into the environment, making it appear as if actual monsters are truly present. The official reason for using this technology is to ensure safety and prevent any real injuries, but there's something Seoki isn't telling them. The crucial detail the instructor hides is that the receiver stimulates the brain to register about a fifth of the pain from an opponent's attack. The purpose isn't to traumatize the cadets, but to instill a necessary level of caution that will increase their chances of survival inside real dungeons. Seoki clarifies that while the AR system has a total of 100 levels, their evaluation will only go up to level 10. The test will be conducted in teams of 4, and he announces they will now be grouped and called in order for the trial. As the teams are formed, Team 3 ends up with a composition of 2 warriors and 2 magicians, which includes both Jay Hyun and Soo-hyuk. Jay Hyun notes that it's a fairly balanced squad, but as he's mulling it over, Soo-hyuk calls out his name. He asks if he is indeed Min Jay Hyun. After our protagonist confirms, Soo-hyuk mentions hearing a rumor that he took first place in the freshman hunt, but admits there's something he doesn't understand. How could a magician possibly achieve first place? Revealing his conviction that there's a unique secret behind it. And so, he demands that Jay Hyun teach him. After a tense pause, Jay Hyun questions if he's ever considered the possibility that such a secret doesn't exist. In response, Soo-hyuk informs him that if that's the case, he'll just have to expose whatever power he hides, even if it means using force. A smirk plays on Jay Hyun's lips as he asks with excitement why he didn't just admit from the very beginning that all he really wanted was a fight. Soo-hyuk, now grinning himself, replies that it's good, they're finally on the same page. This exchange immediately worries the 2 other women on their team, and one of them questions why they're creating such friction when they're supposed to be allies. The shorter of the two nervously wonders if they're going to be okay and moves to intervene, but just then, Instructor Sieg summons their team to the field. As they step onto the testing ground, the system initiates a 5-second countdown, announcing their opponent will be a skeleton warrior. The bony figure materializes before them, and Soo-hyuk's first instinct is to fall back and create some distance. But before he can even take a step, Jay Hyun shoots forward at an incredible speed, leaving the rest of the team completely stunned. And the two women cry out, trying to warn him of the danger. A shocked Soo-hyuk yells out, questioning what on earth he's doing and wondering what Jay Hyun thinks he can accomplish on the front lines, a role so contrary to what the Magic Academy teaches. As Jay Hyun closes the distance, he muses on why such taunts still follow him, deciding it's the perfect time to reveal a fraction of his true abilities here. Gathering mana in his fists, our protagonist shatters the skeleton's skull in a single, devastating blow, leaving his teammates watching in utter disbelief. Even Siaki is left speechless, and the entire crowd of spectators looks on in pure amazement. Moments later, several more skeleton warriors materialize, but Jay Hyun simply pivots and drives his knee into the chest of the nearest one. As he lands, he activates a skill of his called Mono Weapon. Mono Weapon is an exceptional skill that an ordinary magician could never utilize, as it's a specialized skill designed to let a mage inflict direct physical damage. It's typically useless, since magicians avoid close-quarters combat, but our protagonist is clearly cut from a different cloth. Soo-hyuk can only watch in complete confusion, branding Jay Hyun a total psycho. The other girls are still struggling to process what they're seeing as the system announces the successful clearance of level 1 of the AR evasion test, with additional points being awarded. It also notes Jay Hyun's contribution at a staggering 100%. Immediately, level 2 begins, pitting them against a monster known as a jogger. The creature's appearance seems to intrigue Jay Hyun, who remarks that it's been a long time since their last encounter. After a whirlwind of combat that leaves the ground fractured, the system announces the complete clearance of level 10 of the AR evasion test. As the system congratulates them for shattering the record for the shortest completion time, Soo-hyuk finds the entire situation utterly unbelievable. Meanwhile, Jay Hyun reflects that his performance wasn't half bad, noting his body has felt much lighter ever since he began practicing the combat technique that Ms. Seong taught him. Abruptly, Soo-hyuk marches up to him, demanding to know what kind of underhanded trick he just pulled. Jay Hyun tries to downplay what he just did, claiming it was nothing special, but Soo-hyuk isn't having it, arguing that his actions were incredibly reckless. Not only did he abandon the safety of the defense line, but he then proceeded to single-handedly annihilate the entire enemy force, a truly unbelievable performance. It's unbelievable. He insists that accomplishing such a feat is impossible without cheating. But Jay Hyun just repeats that he has nothing to say, because he's not one who hides his true strength. When Soo-hyuk stands his ground, our boy tells him not to make him repeat himself, then moves closer, offering to let Soo-hyuk confirm his power right now if he's that curious. The aggressive move startles Soo-hyuk, and he calls Jay Hyun a bastard. But before anything can escalate, Instructor Seojiki steps in, asking the two of them if there's a problem. The instructor's interference immediately diffuses the building tension, and Soo-hyuk silently wishes there were no instructors around. Our hero eventually turns to walk away, but Soo-hyuk tells him not to think that he's won. In response, our protagonist coolly replies that he doesn't think he lost either. Before Jay Hyun can leave, Soo-hyuk proposes that they fight at the Mills Academy Festival, but Jay Hyun refuses, stating he has already made plans with someone else. A short time later, Hong recalls how Jay Hyun had refused to fight Soo-hyuk during the Mills Academy Festival, all because he had already planned to fight with him. He remembers telling him he would win his name tag back at the Mills Festival, so he resolves to go train harder so as not to let Jay Hyun down. Meanwhile, Siaki and some of the assistant instructors are making their rounds. One of the assistants asks another if he's seen the results of the endurance test this year, and the other man confirms he personally monitored it, adding that the cadets this year are quite skilled. When they begin discussing a magic cadet named Jay Hyun who broke the record, a feat that shouldn't be possible, Siaki considers that the boy is not just talented, because the practice movements he displayed while fighting on the front lines are completely unique for a mere magician. As they enter the chairman's office, Chairman Jian commends them for their good work and proposes they discuss the results of this year's endurance test. Siaki explains that there were a total of 3 cadets who achieved perfect scores, and those cadets are Hoyan, Chaiwan, and Min Hun. Even among those 3, Jay Hyun's scores were on another level. The chairman thanks Instructor Siaki for the information and commends him for his hard work. On his screen, Chairman Jian reviews the footage of Jay Hyun, a subtle grin forming on his face. He tells Siaki that he expects to be kept informed on Jay Hyun's actions and grades, and to be notified immediately if he starts acting strangely in any way, to which Siaki agrees. The chairman then tells them all to keep up the good work and asks that they inform the other instructors to prepare for the upcoming event. Sometime later, Jay Hyun returns to the AR evasion test and completes level 27 of the challenge. The 27th level seems to be his limit, a difficulty that a 6-member party of C-rank raiders would normally struggle to clear. This means his individual strength is equal to that entire force. It turns out that the next event for the freshmen is the Dungeon Practicum, and Jay Hyun decides to begin his preparations. He remembers the Dungeon Practicum incident, which was one of the most disgraceful and tragic events in the history of the Mills Magic Academy, where numerous cadets tragically lost their lives. He and his teammates were caught up in that incident, and in the end, he was the only one from his team who survived. Even as he was forced to listen to people say that he should have been the one to die, he couldn't bring himself to leave the Magic Academy because a deep part of him hides the fear of disappointing the people who believed in him. A short while later, our hero heads to a shop to gear up. With his purchase complete, a heavy question weighs on his mind. Can he truly live a different life this time around? In his previous timeline, he was powerless to protect anyone, living a pathetic existence where he was treated as nothing more than an expendable tool. But he refuses to walk that same path of despair again. Experiencing a life filled with regret once was more than enough. The day before the Magic Academy's crucial dungeon practicum, the students attend their classes as usual, eventually wrapping up their lessons for the day. As the final bell rings, Yoo-jung and Ina make a beeline for Jay Hyun, with Yoo-jung immediately asking him what the plan is for tomorrow, given that it's their very first dungeon practicum. Ina chimes in, admitting she was so nervous she barely slept a wink last night. In response, Jay Hyun calmly reassures them that everyone feels that way before their first dungeon dive. His unfazed demeanor catches Yoo-jung off guard, and she playfully jabs, "Oh, is this not your first time? Did you just pop into a dungeon for a casual stroll or something?" For a casual stroll. He retorts that while he may not be an expert on dungeons, he's certainly encountered his fair share of monsters. One standing right in front of me. That remark is the last straw for Yoo-jung, who promptly loses it and starts playfully raining curses and fists down on him. Ina watches their antics from the side, a warm smile spreading across her face at their silly back and forth. Something to ease their nerves, and Yoo-jung immediately perks up, asking what he's got. Our hero reveals that he picked up some extra potions along with his own, handing them over and telling them to use them if things get dicey. Seeing this, Yoo-jung reluctantly agrees to forgive his teasing, but only because of his thoughtful gesture, while Ina gratefully promises to put the potion to good use. Internally, Jay Hyun reflects that he only scraped through the dungeon practicum last time by sheer luck. This time, however, he's determined to conquer it with pure skill. On the fateful day of the dungeon practicum, Jay Hyun is up at the crack of dawn, meticulously warming up his body. This preparation is critical before entering any dungeon, a fact that the Magic Academy often hides in the fine print of its curriculum. It doesn't matter how immense a mage's mana pool is. If they suddenly unleash high-level spells without preparation, they risk experiencing a violent mana rebound. When mana backfires during casting, it can inflict severe internal damage on the user's body. Any magician who frequently uses powerful, high-level spells is especially susceptible to this danger. Jay Hyun knows this all too well, recognizing that both his lightning chain and sacrifice skills are in that high-risk category. Beyond that, he has no way of knowing just how perilous the dungeon practicum will become today, nor can he be certain if he will survive or if his teammates will fall. To prepare, he pulls his mana in his lower abdomen, a technique that allows him to rapidly reinforce his spells or his own body at a moment's notice. In that state of focus, a memory from before his regression suddenly surfaces. The system's voice echoed in his mind, explaining that time would be rewound to the period the user most desperately yearned for. As he's lost in this memory, the Norner system suddenly activates, triggering a new main quest. It seems he has successfully returned to the very moment he longed for most. The quest states that from this point forward, he must face the critical junctures that once filled him with regret and choose whether to repeat his past choices or forge a new path. Every decision he makes could be the difference between life and death for those around him, and the weight of that choice rests entirely on his shoulders. The mission's difficulty is a complete mystery, as are the potential rewards, which apparently hinge on whether he chooses Route A or Route B. To make matters worse, he has a mere 12 minutes to make his choice, and the penalty for failure is just as shrouded in mystery. Jay Hyun immediately surmises that something big is happening again. The Norner system is clearly pushing him to grow stronger, likely because the gods require him for their grand schemes. Yet, he can't begin to fathom why, of all people, they chose him, about choosing his route, which leaves him wondering what on earth they're plotting. Shortly after, the freshmen are gathered at the Mules Magic Academy's underground mock dungeon. Instructor Yan arrives to brief them, explaining that they'll be grouped into teams of 4 by drawing lots and will be required to work together. As the students begin to murmur, Jay Hyun correctly guesses that the others think the random assignments are unfair. Real monsters will spawn in this dungeon, and if you get lucky, you can clear it with no trouble. But if you're unlucky, you'll be stuck on a low-ranking cadet team, struggling just to survive the raid. As the murmuring grows louder, EJ silences them and clarifies that their performance in this dungeon practicum will be factored into their official test scores. She assures them that only low-level monsters they can definitely defeat will appear in the dungeon practicum and urges them all to try their best. As she speaks, however, June recognizes that her speech hides the true danger. This is Chairman Jay's trap. Just as the instructor said, most of the monsters that appear here are low-level. But he knows if things play out like they did before he regressed, boss-level monsters will be secretly mixed in. He vividly recalls the D-rank boss, the Cobalt Lord. And even though that creature isn't a difficult opponent for him now, he has no intention of playing along with Guy's plans, except for the fact that the small opening GM will create in this practicum might just give him the perfect opportunity to eliminate him. Soon after, Yoon declares that the cadets should come forward one at a time to pick a lot. After the lots are drawn, Jay Hyun and Ina end up on the same team, and our boy tells her he's glad he knows someone, to which she warmly reciprocates. He's relieved to have a teammate he can talk to so easily, especially one who is so incredibly skilled. But just as he starts to think about a strategy, he's completely floored by the sight of his other two teammates. The woman introduces herself as the warrior Kim Jina and the man as the warrior Park Sung-woo. Sung-woo cheerfully asks if they're also on Team 3, but Jay Hyun remembers with a jolt that these two people were his teammates in his past life, and they were the ones who were killed by the boss monster after begging him to run away while they held it off. Suddenly, our boy understands precisely what the Norner system meant by choosing his route, as he can now see the choices laid out right in front of him. When the two new warriors step forward, our boy realizes this is what the Norner system wanted all along. So, he shakes their hands, introducing himself as Jay Hyun and also introducing Ina, seeing as she's clearly shy. Sung-woo finds Ina's shyness amusing, but he's certain that they'll all get along just fine as they spend more time together. And Jina agrees, saying she's sure they'll all get along great. Our boy realizes that these two warriors are exactly the same as they were in his past life, and he's happy to see how their cheerful personalities are already helping Ina relax. Once they've all been introduced, Jay Hyun proposes that they make a plan before heading in. The other two immediately agree, and one of them suggests making Jay Hyun the team leader. With the quest from the Norner system still blazing in his mind, our boy sits down to explain the plan to his new team. He warns them not to lose their nerve no matter what the dungeon hides, because if the warriors in the vanguard start to falter even for a moment, the entire party will be annihilated. The warriors are taken aback by Jay Hyun's tactical insight, and Sung-woo comments that this is to be expected from the person who took first place in the freshman hunt. He quickly grasps that the strategic details are incredibly serious, confirming he's memorized all 6 parts, with Ina affirming she's done the same. Moments later, Instructor Jian steps forward, announcing to the cadets that their preparation time has officially ended. She declares the official start of the dungeon practicum and summons the team leaders to the front, with Jay Hyun promptly stepping forward. As he does, he glances aside and sees Honan stepping up as the leader for Team 4, the very team Yu Jung is on. A wave of relief washes over him. With Honan leading, he's confident Yu Jung will be kept safe from harm. Once the leaders are assembled, Jian instructs them to guide their teams into their designated dungeons, wishing them all good fortune on their trial. Shortly after, Hone confidently leads his team into their assigned dungeon, where one of the members immediately takes in the grim atmosphere. She remarks on the dampness and the musty odor, a stark realization of what real-life dungeons are actually like, and the dangers each one hides. Yu Jung speculates aloud, wondering if they'll encounter kobolds, given that it's an underground labyrinth. Their male teammate concurs, adding that he's heard these subterranean dungeons are rich with ore, which immediately piques Yu Jung's excitement. She gleefully hopes they might find diamonds somewhere within its depths, but her cheerful chatter abruptly halts as she senses something amiss. At that exact moment, Hone's sharp senses pick it up too, and he urgently shouts that something is approaching, ordering them into formation. Yu Jung snaps into action instantly, but the other cadets' confidence falters as they realize the grim truth of their situation. They are completely surrounded by kobolds, and to make matters worse, these aren't just feral beasts, they're armed with digging equipment. Hone quickly briefs his team, explaining that while individual kobolds are weak, they'll be in serious trouble if the creatures manage to swarm them. With that warning, he charges forward, declaring they need to end this fast, while Yu Jung unleashes an explosion of her holy power. She activates her flash bomb skill, creating a brilliant, massive blast that momentarily blinds their monstrous foes. This gives Hone the perfect opening to cut them down as their two teammates engage the remaining monsters, and Yu Jung prepares another move. She calls upon the wind of Helheim, channeling her power into the air blast skill, and unleashes several concussive blasts of air. Aimed squarely at the chests of the kobolds, the blasts send them sprawling to the ground. Once the last monster falls, Hone checks on his team. The young women confirm they're unharmed, but when they turn to their other male teammate, Siho, they see him gasping for air. They immediately rush to his side, with Yu Jung bewildered as she's never known kobolds to use any form of poison. But as she looks up, the horrifying truth dawns on her. He isn't poisoned. He's being crushed by an overwhelming wave of pure mana. Looming before them is a colossal kobold boss, and the students freeze in terror. Why is a kobold lord here? Hone asks in utter disbelief. Meanwhile, in the dungeon assigned to Team 3, things are proceeding much more smoothly as Gina confesses her admiration to Jay Hyun. She admits she knew he was strong, but witnessing his skill firsthand is truly amazing, asking just how many monsters he's single-handedly dispatched. Jay Hyun humbly brushes it off as nothing, claiming things just fell into place, but Gina refuses to accept his modesty. She insists that at this rate, they'll clear the dungeon without a single scratch on anyone, thanks entirely to his leadership. As she speaks, Jay Hyun glances over and notices Ina seems lost in thought, so he gently takes her hand, asking if being around others still makes her uneasy. She quietly admits that it does, confirming Jay Hyun's suspicion that her shyness runs deep, a trait that hides a story few at the Magic Academy knew. For once, Ina utters more than 3 words at a time. As the team presses onward, they stumble into a chamber filled with ores. Jay Hyun immediately realizes this is different from what he remembers, concluding this must be Jian's doing. It dawns on him that his very existence has prompted Jian to alter the original course of events. Abruptly, Jay Hyun senses a monster approaching, and he correctly surmises it's the Cobalt Lord. He quickly informs his teammates to implement their Plan C by establishing a defense first before launching a counterattack. when Jay Hyun warns them to be careful because this monster is on a different level than anything they've encountered. Sungwoo grows anxious that a much stronger creature is on its way, particularly since they were assured only weak monsters roam this area. Suddenly, a figure smashes through a nearby wall, and the cadets are horrified to see a Cobalt Lord. They question what a boss-level monster is doing here. Just as Ina is about to fall back, she recalls Jay Hyun's warning that the entire party would be annihilated if any of the Vanguard warriors were to falter. She swiftly activates the magic armor around her fellow warriors, and Sungwoo struggles to maintain his focus, overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the monster. In that moment, Jay Hyun activates his taunt skill, and as the Cobalt Lord's attack crashes into Sungwoo's shield, Sungwoo cries out to Jay Hyun. Our hero rushes toward them and forms a concentrated mana attack in his hands, blasting it directly at the Cobalt Lord. Ina is stunned by the immense power that Jay Hyun's attack contained, hoping such a massive blow would inflict considerable damage. But the monster easily gets back up as if nothing even happened. The sight draws a wry laugh from Jay Hyun as he witnesses the destroyed parts of the creature regenerating before his eyes. Our hero confesses he hadn't anticipated such anomalies. As its body heals, the Cobalt Lord flashes a sinister grin at them, and Jay Hyun begins to wonder if a foe with regenerative abilities is too much to handle. Suddenly, the Nornir system identifies the entity behind the Cobalt Lord as something called one of Odin's ravens. Consequently, it assigns him a special quest called the Raven Hunter. This quest requires him to eliminate all of Odin's ravens that are secretly pulling the strings, weighing down on him and the gods against the Aesir. There are 5 objectives, and the mission is an S-rank difficulty, offering a blank card and a class increase as a reward, with the penalty being death. Meanwhile, outside the dungeons, Instructor Jian analyzes footage of Jay Hyun's previous battles, wondering how a student from their *** Magic Academy *** can deliver such a performance as a magician. She's an A-rank magician herself, but the combat prowess that Jay Hyun demonstrates is utterly unthinkable to her. She considers the probability of Jay Hyun's Team 3 taking first place in this dungeon's practicum to be quite high. Just then, one of the gates opens, and she's shocked to see Cadet Siho being supported by Ho Yan, as Yu Zhang urgently informs her that there's a major problem. Still in disbelief, Jian asks what happened, and they tell her that a Cobalt Lord appeared inside the dungeon. She is flabbergasted that they could encounter a Cobalt Lord, as there's absolutely no way it could have entered. Jian starts to wonder what on earth hides within the depths of these dungeons. At the same time, the assistant instructors rush to help Siho, who is suffering from a mild case of mana poisoning, and they instruct him to take deep breaths. A moment later, Yu Zhang anxiously asks Instructor Jian if Team 3 has come out yet, and she is told they have not. Hone found it unbelievable, certain that Jay Hyun and Ina, 2 top students from the Magic Academy, were far too skilled to be trapped. After hesitating for a moment, Jian placed a call to Chairman Jia, who feigned surprise, though the smirk on his face hides his true intentions. She reported the appearance of a B-rank monster and urgently requested a rescue team. The chairman, acting surprised by the news, told her not to worry and that he would dispatch a support team. He simply instructed her to wait on site, but after hanging up, Instructor Ji was gripped by a powerful and unexplainable sense of unease. Meanwhile, deep in the dungeon, Anna, Gina, and Sungwoo were nearing their limits when the system alerted June that a sinister existence hides behind the Cobalt Lord. It revealed the true master to be one of Odin's ravens, named Hugin, which translates to thought, and Munin, which translates to memory. With them, Odin gathered all knowledge from across the realms, securing his dominion over Asgard. Understanding this, Jay Hyun addressed the Cobalt Lord as a follower of Odin, revealing to the ravens that he knew of their presence. The mana he felt was nearly B-rank, and it was coming from a regenerative Cobalt Lord, even though our boy had grown much stronger. This opponent was far beyond what any student at the Magic Academy should face alone, and he considered if running was the smartest choice. That was his old habit before he regressed, always hiding behind the selfish justification of self-preservation. But that life had been an endless chain of regrets, and he now viewed this as his second chance. He didn't care if this was some entity's test for him. This time, he was determined to protect them. Without a second thought, Jay Hyun yelled for them all to run straight out of the dungeon while he created a distraction. Sungwoo demanded to know what he was talking about and how he could possibly handle the monsters alone. But before he could finish his sentence, he was ambushed by 2 kobolds from behind. Fortunately for him, Jay Hyun reacted instantly, blasting them away with a volley of holy arrows. He then yelled at Sungwoo to shut up and get out of there, as the Cobalt Lord swung its massive weapon to smash Jay Hyun into the ground. Our boy tried to explain that he couldn't fight and protect them at the same time, and as the monster was about to crush him, Ina cried out his name in fear. But just as he turned to face the blow, a shimmering shield materialized between him and the monster, absorbing the full impact. Stunned, Jay Hyun looked to his side and realized Ina had activated the shield, who then informed him that she could help. Our boy could see in her eyes a resolve that he couldn't argue with, and he wondered if this was another change he had caused in the future. He then instructed Ina to stay with him, while the others were to rush back to the dungeon entrance and inform Instructor Jian. When Sungwoo began to protest, June pleaded with him to leave, so Gina quickly agreed, promising to tell the instructor. She vowed to get word to her as fast as they could. As the 2 departed, Jay Hyun and Ina were left alone to face the monsters. June told Ina he would cover her from the back, so she summoned her radiant holy sword, sending it slicing through a group of lesser kobolds. Jay Hyun took that as his cue, rushing forward to engage the massive kobold lord that was charging toward him. As he got closer, June noticed that the kobold lord's body was strangely melting, a sight our boy found deeply disturbing. He realized this creature's body was far more unstable and unnatural than he had initially thought. He freezes, recalling a fundamental lesson. Every vessel has a limit to the amount of mana it can contain, and this thing was overflowing. Something lurking in the shadows is pulling the strings, a puppet master that hides its presence while force-feeding the monster far more mana than it can possibly handle. He deduces it must be one of Odin's ravens and resolves to drag the creature into the light. With a flash, Jay Hyun summons his weapon, Misteltein. The moment he equips Misteltein, his entire perception shifts, his field of vision widens, and the active skill Mana Perception automatically activates. Because of this, the world transforms into a tapestry of flowing energy, allowing him to distinctly trace the currents of power from any being that wields mana. Using this new perception, our hero's eyes follow a shimmering trail of mana leading from the hulking beast down to a single, inconspicuous claw. A smirk plays on his lips, he's found it. As the monster charges in for another devastating strike, Jay Hyun unleashes his lightning chains, vowing to ensure this abomination is put down for good. Meanwhile, far away in the grand hall of the Aesir gods, one of Odin's ravens arrives in Asgard, seeking an audience with Odin himself. Hugin reports that his network of spies has finally located the whereabouts of the legendary Misteltein, the very weapon that vanished from the divine armory. Frigg, Odin's queen, immediately demands to know its location. Hugin informs her it has surfaced in Midgard, the mortal realm of Earth, and appears to be in the possession of the prophesied adversary. The news visibly unnerves her, and she curses Mimir, calling him an old fool. Thor, however, sitting nearby, assures her that they are monitoring the situation with extreme prejudice, particularly after the treaty they signed with the anti-Aesir factions. Freya, also present, scoffs at Thor's complacency, sharply reminding him of how they lost the beloved Balder in the last Great War, and how the instrument of his demise was that very same mistletoe branch, the dreaded Misteltein. After a long silence, Odin commands Hugin to discover whether this foretold adversary has made any contact with the forces aligned against the Aesir. With his new orders, the Raven returns to Earth. Meanwhile, back in the chairman's office at the Magic Academy, Ja continues to idly twist the peculiar ring on his finger, just as he was when Jian had called him. A moment later, Siaki enters the room. The chairman, without looking up, asks for a status report. The instructor confirms that, so far, no one appears to have noticed anything unusual. A sinister smile spreads across Ja's face as he chuckles, pleased that he borrowed strength ahead of schedule. The chairman is utterly convinced that Jay Hyun, regardless of his arrogance, will ultimately fall into his grasp. Ja then mutters that all of this is for the glory of Odin and the Aesir. Back in the perilous dungeon, our boy targets the monster's chest with his lightning chains. However, the beast simply snatches the crackling chains out of the air, seemingly unharmed, and retaliates with a vicious swing of its weapon aimed to take Jay Hyun's head clean off his shoulders. Our hero reacts in a split second, throwing himself backwards to narrowly avoid decapitation. With Ina at his side, he quickly asks if she can provide cover, explaining that he needs a window free from the monster's relentless assault. She tells him she will try, though her strained expression betrays her fatigue. Jay Hyun instantly realizes Ina must already know about the risk of experiencing a severe mana rebound. Even if they defeat the Kobold Lord, the backlash could very well be fatal for her. But he can't help but wonder why she is still willing to risk everything to help him. In this second chance at life, Jay Hyun had vowed never to trust anyone again. This world, after all, had proven to be mercilessly unfair and cruel to the powerless. But looking at her, he feels that resolve wavering. His expression hardens. Turning back to his colossal foe, he decides it's time to end this. He knows he has only one opportunity and unleashes a furious barrage of lightning chains at the monster once more, while Ina, true to her word, musters her remaining strength to conjure a protective mana shield around Jay Hyun. Our hero charges straight for the monster, while Ina, overcome with a growing sense of dread, bites her lip as her hands start to tremble uncontrollably. The enraged beast immediately locks onto the approaching Jay Hyun, whose mind flashes back to a crucial piece of advice from a friend in his past life. That friend had once told him there is no greater misery than to fall in battle simply because you failed to trust your comrades. And so, as Jay Hyun vaults toward the creature, he gives Ina the signal to act, vowing to himself that he will now put that wisdom to the ultimate test. He leaps onto one of the massive chains, using it as a conduit to propel himself forward, leaving Ina utterly speechless at the sight. She can't believe he's using it as a movement skill, a technique that hides a level of mana control far beyond anything taught at a typical magic academy. All the while, the monster stands its ground, waiting as June closes the distance on the chain, but he isn't aiming for a direct collision. Instead, our hero soars right over its head. In that same instant, the monster contorts its arm, attempting to swat June out of the sky. It performs the attack without turning its body, a move that would be far too slow, which makes it obvious what's truly happening. This entire assault is being orchestrated by the Raven. Ina's heart sinks, fearing Jay Hyun will be struck down, but our protagonist is a step ahead. He effortlessly evades the blow with a confident smirk. Activating his mana perception, he traces the invisible threads of control back to the very spot where Odin's Raven hides. He then brings his sword down on that precise location with every last sword, but the strike finds its mark, forcing the Cobalt Lord to let out a deafening roar as the system suddenly announces that the mana thread connecting the Cobalt Lord to Odin's Raven has been severed. As Jay Hyun lands gracefully on the fateful ground, the colossal beast crashes down behind him, and our hero walks forward to finally face the being responsible for all this chaos. As he moves closer, Jay Hyun finds Hugin, crumpled and defeated from his powerful strike. He demands to know what in the courting this Hell Odin's ultimate goal is, stepping on the Raven's head when it fails to respond. It's then that June spots a necklace with an insignia of 3 triangles, a design eerily similar to the one on Chairman Ji's ring. He presses down on the Raven again, demanding to know the connection between Guja and Odin, but the creature remains silent. Eventually, June deduces that the Raven possesses no will of its own, making any further interrogation meaningless. He finally lifts his foot, allowing the bird to fly back to Asgard and report to its master. In that moment, Ina bursts onto the scene, desperately looking for Jay Hyun. But Jay Hyun quickly warns her that the danger isn't over yet, telling her to brace for the mana rebound. Before the words can even fully leave his mouth, she freezes in place, and the Norner system alerts Jay Hyun that corrupted mana has begun to accumulate in his body. Jay Hyun clutches his chest in agony, and Ina does the same. However, the Nornir system immediately begins to purge the corruption from Jay Hyun's mana, thanks to its exceptional purity. Shortly after, he stabilizes, and the system notifies him that his mana capacity has been permanently increased by 5%. Jay Hyun is relieved it worked, and a notification confirms he has succeeded in hunting the first of his targets from the special quest known as Raven Hunter. He is rewarded with 5 stat points, a blank card, and a level upgrade. Once he is fully recovered, Jun realizes that the situation could have ended far more disastrously than it did. But when he turns his attention to Ina, he sees no such good fortune. The Nornir system informs him that his teammate's life is in grave danger. Our hero rushes toward Ina as the system delivers a chilling ultimatum. She will die if she does not recover immediately. A short while later, Ina awakens, drenched in sweat and nursing a pounding headache. Spotting Jay Hyun beside her, she immediately asks him what transpired. He appears to have been dozing, but her voice stirs him awake. Clearly surprised, he expresses his astonishment that she's conscious and inquires about her condition. Upon checking her status window, she's utterly shocked to find her health and mana have been completely restored. Confusion clouds her mind. Her last memory is of suffering a severe mana rebound, an event she shouldn't have recovered from so easily. Shaking off her confusion, she assures Jay Hyun she's alright and turns the question back to him. He replies that he's fine as well, mentioning that he must have drifted off. Her gaze then falls upon the lifeless body of the Lord Cobalt, prompting her to ask Jay Hyun why he didn't escape on his own. He explains that he was waiting for her to awaken, as there was something important he needed to discuss. Her curiosity is piqued, so she presses him for details. After a brief, contemplative pause, Jay Hyun states that they need to align their stories. A sudden blush creeps onto Ina's face, as the Korean phrase he used for aligning their stories has a much more intimate direct translation, meaning, I want to press my lips against yours. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, Yu Jung furiously confronts Sungwoo and Gina, demanding to know why only 2 of them returned. Instructor Jian quickly steps in, trying to restrain her from doing anything rash. She attempts to calm Yu Jung down, assuring her that she understands the worry she feels for her friends. Nearby, Hoyan anxiously wonders what he could possibly do to help Jay Hyun and Ina. Just then, the dungeon portal shimmers and opens. As Yu Jung continues her tirade, Jay Hyun and Ina calmly step through, which brings everyone to a stunned, silent halt. Jay Hyun calmly asks if the commotion is about them. Even Instructor Jian is frozen in disbelief. The inspection team had given a grim report, stating that the 2 cadets from this magic academy were certainly dead. After all, the monster inside was, at minimum, a B-rank boss. Abruptly, tears well up in Yu Jung's eyes as she bolts towards the pair, her arms outstretched for an embrace. Sobbing, she clings to them, explaining that the instructor and the inspection team had all concluded they were gone for good. She expresses her immense relief that they're alive, which brings a warm smile to Ina's face. Jay Hyun, however, coolly tells her he understands and asks if she could please let go now. In the background, even Sungwoo and Gina are visibly teary-eyed. Noticing their emotional state, Jay Hyun offers them a sincere thank you for having faith. He then addresses everyone, explaining that their 2 teammates retreated on his direct orders to get the instructor for assistance, and therefore they deserve neither insults nor blame. Yu Jung, however, is still fuming and demands to know how they could abandon their teammates. In response, Jay Hyun tells her that he would have made the same choice in their position, so her anger is misplaced. He gently reminds her that not everyone possesses her level of courage, and asks her not to be angry on his behalf. The comment clearly stings Yu Jung, who promptly releases his arm and latches onto Ina instead, declaring she was furious for Ina's sake, not his. The scene then flashes back to their conversation just before exiting the dungeon. Ina had directly asked Jay Hyun if he was responsible for her miraculous recovery, but he admits that while he understands her confusion, it's difficult to explain everything. He clarifies that this is an ability he absolutely cannot let others know about. Naturally, she asks why he hides it. Pivoting, our protagonist asks if she isn't curious why a Cobalt Lord would even appear in a student dungeon and endanger everyone. He reveals the culprit. Chairman Gu Jia, a real piece of work who views the students of this magic academy as nothing more than disposable tools. Jay Hyun warns her that the chairman's public persona is a complete facade, public and the media, and that he considers it perfectly acceptable for useless students at this magic academy to die. Ina finally understands why Jay Hyun is so against the chairman and why he hides his true abilities, and he confirms her realization with his silence. After a long pause, she reminds him of something he said to her the day they went to the chairman's office. He had warned her not to trust anyone, whether it was the chairman or an instructor, so she asks him just how much he truly knows. She points out that he knew from the very beginning that the chairman was a dangerous person, and he acted with a foresight that suggested he knew what was going to happen. She presses him, asking how he knows all of these things. When he remains silent, Ina pleads with him to answer her, but Jay Hyun is still speechless, having never expected such a direct confrontation from her. He knows her life could be at risk if she gets any more involved in his affairs. He briefly considers using his indoctrination skill on her, but he quickly reconsiders because she possesses a high magical aptitude value. Her mental fortitude is so strong that the skill might not even work, and it's certainly not a proper solution in the long run. Securing first place, but it was a terrible way to make allies. He eventually apologizes, explaining that he can't reveal anything more than what he's already shared. She presses him, asking why he's being so secretive. Jae Hyun finally admits that it would put her in grave danger, too, if he were to tell her anything more, pleading with her to let the matter rest for now. Back in the present, Instructor Jan bows her head and offers Jae Hyun a sincere apology for being unable to rescue them from the dungeon, adding that she's relieved to see him safe. However, he reassures her that it's all right, especially since she wasn't aware of what the dungeon truly hides. When Jae Hyun turns to leave and get some rest, Ina hurries after him, asking once more if he truly cannot tell her the secrets he knows, pointing out that nobody can guarantee this won't happen again, but he can only apologize, saying that he simply cannot tell her and hopes she will honor the promise she made. Once Jae Hyun is gone, the Norner system notifies him of clearing the main quest, the first major turning point, and explains that the rewards are based on the route he chose. It informs him that he took Route B, a path different from the one he selected in his past life. As a result, he's awarded a rare item called Aiden's Golden Apple. Sometime later, Chairman Jin expresses his severe disappointment. Seoki apologizes profusely, but the chairman states he will only tolerate this failure once, admitting how much he despises having an incompetent subordinate. With a chilling expression, the chairman turns to the instructor, asking if he truly understands the implication. Trembling, Seoki promises never to disappoint him again, and the chairman tells him he'd better not. He then orders Seoki to ensure Jae Hyun is tamed during the next event at the Magic Academy, before his patience wears thin. The following morning, our hero takes a quick shower, and the sight of his clothes triggers a memory of Ina suffering from mana rebound. Before his regression, Kim Yoo-jung had died, and Hoyan never even reached half of his true potential, so he knows he must intervene this time for the future's sake. However, he feels he doesn't need to meddle in Ina's affairs, as she'll likely succeed even without his help. He resolves to be cautious in his interactions with her, uncertain of how it might alter the timeline. Finally, he settles onto the couch and flips on the television, looking for anything interesting to watch. As the news plays, he concludes that he must first uncover the relationship between Gwain and the Kabak. He has to contact Azer immediately, recognizing that what transpired in the dungeon was merely the beginning of something much larger. He'll be facing far more perilous situations, and he knows he must get stronger, possessing a power that any magic academy would covet. While watching the news, his attention is caught by a broadcaster interviewing an expert about different types of dungeons. The specialist explains that beyond the conventional dungeons everyone is used to, there are also themed dungeons. These require a completely different strategy than a normal dungeon, where simply killing the boss is enough to clear it. When asked for more details, the expert reveals their most significant feature. Once you're inside, there is absolutely no leaving the dungeon, before it has been fully cleared. Our hero instantly recalls these special dungeons from his past life, and a plan begins to spark. The expert elaborates that raiders must fully embody a character within the dungeon's theme to even attempt it. This means fulfilling specific requirements, essentially a high-stakes form of role-playing, and the ultimate goal for raiders in these dungeons are the exceptionally rare rewards. The expert explains that each one hides a hidden piece, which raiders have nicknamed God's Arrangement. This unique item is the very reason raiders are desperate to conquer these dungeons, no matter the difficulty. Upon hearing this, Jae Hyun can't help but smirk, realizing this is the golden opportunity he's been waiting for. Elsewhere, Ina is enjoying a quiet cup of tea. She's with Yoo-jung, and she apologizes for making her friend worry so much. Yoo-jung reassures her, saying that it's all fine, as long as both of them are safe. She then bluntly admits that Jae Hyun has a rather difficult personality and she was worried that he might have been unkind to Ina, explaining that's just how he is. However, Ina's thoughtful pause makes Yoo-jung immediately suspicious, angrily demanding to know if Jae Hyun was actually mean to her. A surprised Ina quickly clarifies that he wasn't. She simply points out that Jae Hyun seems to trust Yoo-jung a great deal, and she wishes he could depend on her as well. She voices her thought that maybe if she were a little stronger, he would be able to trust her more. Her subsequent silence only makes Yoo-jung more concerned. Decisively, she gets up and suggests they stop thinking about Jae Hyun for a while. Instead, she proposes they go and eat something delicious. Stretching her hands out, Yu Jung says there's a place she's been dying to go to. Before Ina can protest, Yu Jung grabs her hand and declares that her mission is to cheer Ina up. Initially surprised by Yu Jung's forceful cheerfulness, Ina soon finds a genuine smile spreading across her face. Meanwhile, our protagonist is inspecting a legendary rank consumable item known as a Dune's Golden Apple, a fruit grown and picked by the goddess Eden, the keeper of the Aesir gods' eternal youth and immortality. Consuming it slows the users aging by 50% and simultaneously increases their natural healing ability by 50%, while also permanently boosting their magic aptitude. However, it cannot be sold or transferred to another user. Jay Hyun knows that abilities like anti-aging and enhanced healing are unbelievably rare, likely worth at least 1 million. The problem is that this item, too, is untradeable. He decides to shift his focus to calculating the value of the loot he can actually sell. His mind then drifts to an A-rank themed dungeon opening soon. He remembers it's located in a theme park in Seoul, and it's the one place he can get the speed-enhancing boots called the Thunder Steps. These were the very boots worn by Thor's servant, They, and they provide a massive boost to the user's dexterity stat, making them highly sought after by martial arts raiders. Finally, with great anticipation, Jay Hyun takes a bite of the golden apple, and a brilliant light flashes, though he soon discovers that it tastes just like any ordinary fruit. Moments later, however, the Nornir system announces that Eden's golden apple is kicking in, permanently boosting his stamina stat by 20 points. His mana stat also receives a 20-point increase, while his aging rate and natural healing ability are enhanced by a staggering 50% each. On top of all that, his magical aptitude will now be permanently and significantly amplified. Jay Hyun smirks, relieved the apple's effects were anything but average, as his movements begin to feel noticeably lighter. He grabs his phone and quickly makes a call. Shortly thereafter, our protagonist makes his way to the theme park in Seoul, noting how cheap the place looks now compared to his memories from before he regressed. As he approaches the counter, the attendant asks what kind of ticket he'd like, but Jay Hyun simply places a Lotus Guild card on the desk, introducing himself as a raider from their ranks. He calmly informs her that a themed dungeon is about to manifest right here in the park. Meanwhile, Instructor Jan arrives at Jay Hyun's hostel, only to be told by the staff that he isn't there. The attendant explains that Jay Hyun mentioned having something important to do today, and then asks if there's any trouble. Jian quickly reassures her that nothing is wrong, though she inwardly marvels at how Jay Hyun could recover so quickly from such a traumatic incident, especially for a new student at the Magic Academy. He's not just skilled, but he also seems to be incredibly fast at bouncing back from trauma. Jian concludes that the boy has some serious nerve. Before departing, she asks the attendant to have Jay Hyun come and see her upon his return. Once outside the hostel, Jian discreetly activates a communication device, a secret she hides from prying eyes, to speak with a team manager named Song Jaeok Sunbayam. Jaeok answers promptly, asking for an update on her investigation, so she reports that she has confirmed Jay was the one behind the incident. Jaeok then asks if Seoki was overseeing that dungeon trial, and surmises that he must be in a very tight spot right now. He instructs her to keep a close watch on both of them and to report anything suspicious immediately. Jian acknowledges the order and adds that she suspects another student, Minhun, whom she'd mentioned to him before, knows more about the situation than he's letting on. Back at the theme park, officials are making announcements, telling all guests that they must evacuate the premises immediately. Jay Hyun is impressed by the swift response, a clear sign that the Lotus Guild is truly influential. His mind flashes back to the call he made to teacher Shangan, informing her about the impending dungeon. When he had expressed absolute certainty, she granted him permission to use the guild's name, but only on the condition that he would prioritize his own safety above all else if the situation turned dangerous. He was amused by her concern, but she insisted it wasn't that she doubted his capabilities, but that no teacher ever wants to see their student in harm's way, because anything can happen inside a dungeon. Returning to the present, the Nornir system alerts our hero that the themed dungeon, Neverland in Ruins, has finally manifested. It seems a special item will be awarded if 3 missions are cleared back-to-back. A special quest titled Big 3 is initiated. His objective is to conquer all 3 missions, each boasting an A-rank difficulty, with the ultimate reward being the legendary Thay's Thunder Steps. A 24-hour countdown begins, though strangely, the penalty for failure isn't specified. A sense of familiarity washes over Jay Hyun. Things are unfolding exactly as he remembers from his past life. In a flashback, he recalls another. A new raider appeared, boasting about how she instantly recognized the Viking ship as a mission location. Her flashback revealed an incredible intellect, effortlessly pinpointing key attractions in the park, such as the haunted house and the parade. Her name is Seo On, a 16-year-old themed dungeon raider who openly declares that her skill, cognition accelerant, is absolutely phenomenal. She believes there's no puzzle she can't solve, no secret a Magic Academy hides, if she just applies her mind. She gushes about her excitement upon discovering it's a themed dungeon, her expectations clearly met, while Jay Hyun immediately recognizes her as the self-proclaimed genius with an IQ of 150. In his past life, her over-the-top bragging about her power led to her downfall, as she was ultimately taken down by jealous rivals. Because of her demise, the coveted Alfie's Thunder Steps ended up in the hands of some random nobody. This time around, Jay Hyun is determined that it will be better for him to claim the Thunder Steps. Shortly after this realization, the Norner system prompts him, asking if he wishes to commence the Viking mission, the first of the 3 major trials, and he agrees without hesitation. He is instantly teleported into the Viking dungeon, where the system ominously informs him that this story's ending is being changed. Just as Jay Hyun vanishes, Sioena appears near his last known location, narrowly missing him. In the next moment, our boy is completely synchronized with a character within the dungeon, learning he is now playing as Thialfi, a warrior who survived the brutal Viking invasion. The first of the 3 great missions, titled Thialfi's Grudge, is officially added to his log. In this theme quest, the Thialfi's Grudge, the thunder god Thor grew envious of Thialfi's incredible speed and kidnapped his younger sister. Rosva, holding her hostage to force Thialfi into servitude. Our hero must now become Thialfi and save his younger sister, Roskava, to resolve this deep-seated grudge. The mission's difficulty is at B rank, and the reward is an active skill called Commander's Shout. The conditions for failure are the death of Roskva or his own demise, but the penalty for him is absolute death. He is now Thialfi, servant of the thunder god Thor and the swiftest being across the 9 realms. He was originally human but came to despise the Aesir after losing his family to the very Vikings who worship the Aesir gods. Jay Hyun is stunned by this revelation. Thialfi's hatred for the Aesir is a major deviation from the original story as it is popularly known, making him wonder if this is another conflict brewing between the Aesir and the Norner. He hears a voice call out his new name, urging him to wake up. As he struggles to his feet, a sharp pain lances through his head, and he's completely disoriented. Looking around, he realizes he's aboard a ship he stole in his quest to find Rosva. As he looks forward, he recognizes the person who woke him as Frederick, the very mastermind behind the plan to steal this ship. Frederick asks if he's all right, but just as he's about to answer, their vessel violently collides with another, sending a massive tremor through the deck. Before they can process what's happening, a group of pirates swarms their ship, and it's clear they are in serious trouble. Jay Hyun is still trying to grasp the situation, but it's obvious that he's going to have to postpone his search for Roskva. Jay Hyun immediately tells Frederick he'll handle this, and he leaps onto the adjacent ship, even as Frederick tries to call him back. When our hero lands squarely on the other deck, the men are startled, but one of them quickly starts to taunt him for foolishly jumping right into the heart of enemy territory. Should be in hiding. They start hurling insults and threats to end him on the spot, but our protagonist remains silent. A single word. His attention is drawn to a girl bound to the ship's mast, and he recognizes her as Sio, the very same girl who had just been boasting about her incredible talents. He can't help but wonder what she's gotten herself into. Instantly, the Norse system chimes in with an update, revealing that the captive is none other than Thialfi's younger sister, Roskva. Sio Hyun prides herself on possessing a genius-level intellect and being a top-tier raider in the making. She truly believes she's destined for greatness, yet somehow she's ended up trapped within this very dungeon. A mere 3 minutes before the park's emergency broadcast, she casually told her friends she was heading to the restroom. Now, finding herself in this predicament, she calculates a 0.66% chance of a dungeon materializing at her location and a minuscule 0.000003% probability of her being trapped inside. After bemoaning her rotten luck, she pushes the thought aside, focusing instead on finding an escape route. After a moment of despair, tearing up at the thought that she doesn't want to perish here, she clings to the hope that a raid team has already entered. While desperately wishing to encounter one of them, she catches sight of Jay Hyun standing calmly in the park center, prompting her to follow him. She's puzzled by who he could be, as he doesn't look like a member of any official raid team, which only deepens the mystery. Back in the present, Jay Hyun questions his luck, wondering why he had to run into her again, especially after a clear evacuation order was issued for everyone in the area. As he's lost in thought, the pirates take aim, ready to turn him into a pincushion. But our hero instantly conjures a mana shield that hides him from the volley, protecting him from the onslaught of arrows. As the projectiles rain down, he can't help but wonder why he's a magnet for such bizarre individuals. He quickly channels mana into his fist, unleashing a single, devastating punch that floors the entire group. With the immediate threat gone, our protagonist decides to be optimistic. Even though Sio is a bit of a handful, he recognizes her potential value for this raid. Just then, a new, much larger opponent emerges, swinging a massive sword at Jay Hyun, but our boy deftly slides aside to evade the attack. Realizing he can't just send Sio away, he figures it's far better to make use of her skills. After dodging that initial strike, he counters with a powerful punch square on the giant's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. He knows he needs to handle this situation first and then figure out his next move with Sio. As the remaining pirates charge forward to overwhelm him, Jay Hyun coolly tells them that he's short on time, inviting them to attack him all at once. Moments later, he's dispatched every last one of the men and casually strolls over to Sio, telling her to drop the act and stop feigning sleep. Jay Hyun then asks if she's the one known as Roskva, but she simply hisses in response, admitting he's caught on. A smirk plays on her lips as she retorts, asking if he's supposed to be Thialfi. Jay Hyun confirms his identity and crouches down to her level. But then, he suddenly shatters the structure she's bound to with a single punch, making her tremble in fear. With a chilling glint in his eyes, Jay Hyun informs her that he knows exactly what is going through her mind. He sternly advises her against trying any of her little schemes. It's obvious his threat landed perfectly, as she nods eagerly, letting out a nervous hiccup. Shortly after, the system notifies Jay Hyun that he has successfully cleared the first of the 3 major missions and is being transported back to the field. He and Seo reappear in the park, now sitting across from one another at a table. From Seo's perspective, Jay Hyun is a magic class raider whose movements are more akin to a martial artist, a style not taught at any magic academy. She suspects he appeared to be about her age, but with an incredibly abrasive personality. As she pondered who this peculiar boy could be, Jay Hyun finally broke the tense silence, demanding to know what kind of skill she possessed. Seo hesitated, stammering before finally claiming that her abilities simply enhanced her swordsmanship. She figured a simple lie would suffice for Jun, given how few middle schoolers actually awaken any skills, and with his rotten attitude, she thought she could easily manipulate him for her own benefit. However, while she was scheming, Jay Hyun cut through her thoughts, stating flatly that her skill was more than she let on. When he declared his hatred for liars, she frantically insisted she was telling the truth, claiming she had a simple D-rank skill named Beginner Swordsmanship Revision. After a brief, piercing silence, Jun corrected her. Her real skill, he stated, was Cognition Accelerant. He explained how it creates the illusion of slowed time, drastically speeding up the user's thought processes. It's a rare skill, highly sought after in any prestigious magic academy for training commanders, and it's also effective for analyzing an opponent's mind. When he asked if he was wrong, she was utterly baffled, demanding to know how he uncovered the skill she hides so desperately. Immediately, Jay Hyun stood up, declaring he couldn't team up with her because she was clearly still plotting to deceive and manipulate him. He told her he wasn't a fool and turned to leave, but she desperately begged him to wait, apologizing profusely as tears streamed down her face. She pleaded with him not to abandon her, crying that she would absolutely perish if he left her behind. Jay Hyun coldly asked how he could possibly trust her now, to which she tearfully offered to find a way. Upon hearing that, a sly smile spread across our boy's face as he proposed a contract. She was bewildered at first, but quickly grasped his meaning as they drafted the magical agreement. The first clause stipulated that she could not act in any manner that would bring harm to Jay Hyun. The second clause demanded she obey all of his commands without question. The third stated that Jay Hyun would guarantee her safety until they cleared the Neverland-themed dungeon, and the fourth bound her to absolute secrecy about this very contract. She clutched her hair in pure frustration as she read the terms. This binding agreement was enforceable through Jay Hyun's subordination ability, a terrifying offshoot of his indoctrination skill. It allowed him to establish absolute supremacy through a contract, and he knew this was the only way to manage her, seeing as she was such a handful. Left with no choice, she finally agreed to sign, and instantly, a glowing, binding chain materialized around her neck and arm. The system announced that Seo had been successfully subordinated, and that this bond, being contractual, would not break even after the quest was cleared. Seeing her despair, Jay Hyun attempted to console her, saying the conditions were quite fair since he didn't have control over her actual thoughts, but she shot back that having someone else's will imposed on her mind was anything but pleasant. In response to her defiance, he told her she was free to break the contract, reminding her he never forced her to sign and that he could simply leave her there. But before he could even finish his sentence, she quickly backtracked, assuring him she would do her absolute best. Meanwhile, within Hell's temple, a figure addressed Hell, noting that he had noticed their little adversary was working quite diligently, especially since the glares from the Aesir gods had grown noticeably sharper. The speaker shared that the Aesir gods would be furious if he departed now, so he asked Hell to serve as his eyes, explaining he needed to buy more time until the adversary was fully prepared. Back at the park, Seo trailed obediently behind Jay Hyun, and she soon asked him where they were going now. He informed her that they were going to one of the rides called the Haunted House first, and she immediately shrieks, terrified of such rides. Jay Hyun can't help but ask if she's scared. In response, she asks if he seriously thinks she'd be frightened by that, questioning what kind of middle schooler is afraid of something so childish. Jay Hyun remarks that someone like her just might be, but when she vehemently denies it, he simply agrees with her. As they approach the entrance, our hero tells her to get ready, but she pleads for a moment to do some deep breathing exercises. The system announces the start of their second mission within the haunted house, and in a flash, they are transported inside. Their objective is to escape without breaking the 3 primary rules, and to make it harder, some of their skills will be locked. Jay Hyun asks Seo what her designated role is for this dungeon, and she guesses she's the cameraman, given the device in her hands. Curious, she then asks what his role is. Our protagonist explains that he's supposed to be some kind of horror streamer and that it's been a while since they last had a guest. Just then, a massive man materializes beside them with a greeting. Seo looks like she's about to have a heart attack. However, the man quickly introduces himself as Alfred, the dutiful butler of this grand estate, explaining that he serves Countess Flandir. The butler clarifies that the Countess herself instructed him to greet them personally, and just then, the Norner system chimes in. It alerts Jay Hyun to the start of his second mission, ominously titled the Flandir Invitation. The briefing explains they've been formally invited by Countess Flandir, the mistress of this mansion, a place that clearly hides a terrible secret. Their objective is to use their camera to expose the truths lurking within these walls and then escape with their lives. The mission's difficulty is a daunting A rank, but it offers the reward of a powerful active skill known as illusion. Failure to escape within the time limit or to reveal what this mansion hides will result in a fatal penalty. At that moment, Alfred cordially invites them inside. He mentions that the Countess insisted they be treated with the utmost hospitality. Our hero looks a bit on edge, but Seo is practically drenched in nervous sweat. Alfred then offers to guide them to the dining room first, suggesting they must be weary from their long journey. Once they step inside, Jay Hyun's eyes are drawn to a vase bearing a peculiar tag that reads, "For the most beautiful and foolish little girl." Meanwhile, Seo spots a rather lovely painting of a little girl with her dog, which Alfred identifies as a portrait of the owner and her canine companion Sean. Our hero estimates the girl in the painting to be about 12 or 13 years old, so he remarks that the Countess must truly cherish her childhood to display such a prominent portrait from that time. Alfred agrees, noting that the Countess values her youth for its dreamlike, happy memories, though he says this with a ghastly expression that chills them to the bone. The butler's unsettling demeanor makes our protagonist deeply uncomfortable, while Seo looks like she's on the verge of tears. Finally, the strange man beckons them to follow. As they trail behind him, our hero knows he must remain vigilant. This place felt more dangerous than any trial at a magic academy. The system had provided context for the first mission, but this time, it offered nothing, meaning he'd have to uncover all the secrets himself. He glances over at Seo, who is visibly panicked, and calls her out, noting that she was clearly lying when she claimed not to be scared. However, Seo quickly retorts that she's just a bit jittery, insisting she simply hasn't adjusted to the new environment yet. Shortly after, Alfred announces their arrival at the dining table, where he presents a grand feast supposedly prepared for them by Countess Flandier. Yet, with that same unsettling glint in his eyes, he urges them to enjoy their meal very slowly. He disappears behind the door, as if he's waiting for them to consume the poisoned meal. Once Alfred is gone, the two of them pause. After a moment, Seo states the obvious, eating the food would be a terrible mistake, so Jay Hyun in response suggests they explore their surroundings while the butler is away. But just as he's about to move, Seo stops him, insisting they gather some intel first. He complies, and she immediately centers her focus, activating her cognition accelerant. Skill. The ability instantly sharpens her awareness of what the environment hides, and in mere moments, she informs Jay Hyun that she has already uncovered several key details about the mansion. Our hero is stunned by her speed and asks her to share what she's found. Seo reveals her theory. The master of this mansion is a child, likely around 12 years old, and when Jay Hyun questions her reasoning, she points to a nearby chair in the lobby as clear evidence. The seat of the chair meant for the owner is noticeably higher than the rest, suggesting a stature much smaller than any adult who might sit in the other chairs. On top of that, all the lobby shelves are set quite low, and only the bottom handles show any signs of use. Jay Hyun concedes that her logic is sound and suggests they continue their investigation elsewhere, and Seo quickly follows his lead. As they walk, she expresses her concern about leaving her expensive camera behind, hoping they can retrieve it. Suddenly, Jay Hyun freezes in his tracks. Seo approaches him, asking what's the matter, but he cuts her off with a tense warning that this is not the time for jokes, because they are well and truly locked in. Outside the newly manifested themed dungeon, raiders and news reporters have gathered just 2 hours after its appearance, with one reporter announcing a park employee has confirmed that a raider from the prestigious Lotus Guild is trapped inside, along with a middle school student named Seo Hyun, voicing public concern about whether these two young individuals will manage to escape. Nearby, a raider named Sunbaenim stands watching the scene unfold. He lets out a curse, realizing their delayed arrival at the themed dungeon is going to cost them their chance at a promotion. His partner, Kang Hun, the very same raider who appeared after Jay Hyun and Hoon handled the goblin incident, tries to reason with him, mentioning that there was no way to predict a themed dungeon would erupt inside a theme park. But Sunbaenim isn't having it. He counters that if the civilian council's assessment of them drops, Kang Hun could face a demotion, despite his recent success with the goblin incident, and Sunbaenim grimly accepts that his own promotion would be completely nullified. In response, Kang Hun sarcastically thanks him for the vote of confidence, but Sunbaenim just doubles down, insisting they're going to take the fall for this. He then asks Kang Hun to identify the two people trapped inside. As Kang Hun checks, his eyes widen in surprise when he realizes it's Jay Hyun. He recalls hearing the kid had enrolled in Mills, that renowned magic academy and now wonders if the Lotus Guild has already scouted him. Seeing the look on his partner's face, Sunbaenim grows anxious, asking if there are only 2 people inside instead of the rumored 3. But Kang Hun offers a surprising bit of reassurance, stating his firm belief that this themed dungeon will be cleared. Back inside the haunted mansion, Seo is absolutely petrified by the revelation that they're locked in. She begins to tremble, asking Jay Hyun what's going to happen to them if they're trapped in here forever. He urges her to stay calm, reminding her that since this is a dungeon, there must be a way out. Clinging to that sliver of hope in her desperation, she agrees and forces herself to start searching the area with him, more like a desperate escape. Alone with his thoughts, our boy realizes the mansion's owner must not like them, a stark contrast to the welcoming facade of any proper magic academy. Secondly, he reasons there's no way a flimsy door like this could stop him, not with the incredible stats he currently possesses. Moreover, Seo has managed to escape this very place by herself before he regressed, which implies that the required stamina stat to clear this dungeon is likely quite low. It seems to him that there must be another variable at play, some secret the mansion hides. And while he's lost in thought, Seo calls him over to look at something. He asks her what's going on, and she explains that something is off about the camera. He initially dismisses her as being dramatic, but upon stepping closer, he's confronted by the corpse of Alfred, the very same butler who had guided them, splayed across the dining table. He instantly realizes the Alfred they met was an imposter. Right on cue, a system notification announces they've uncovered 70% of Alfred's secret, the first mystery of the mansion. As it dawns on him that the camera reveals things hidden from their naked eyes, they both understand it's a key to unraveling this entire mystery. Our protagonist theorizes that if the Alfred they met was a fake, then the screen must be showing them either the present or the past. Given that this is a dungeon centered on solving the mansion's mystery, it's highly unlikely it would reveal the future. SEO quickly concludes it must be the past, believing the camera is showing them the mansion's secrets by revealing moments from its history. If that's the case, she realizes this elaborate feast was never meant for consumption. June then recalls the faint trace of mana he'd been sensing, which can only mean one thing: this is all an illusion. Illusion magic is a common trick in dungeon traps, something they teach you on day one at any decent magic academy. With this in mind, our boy places a finger on the table and activates his absolute calculation skill. However, for some reason, the system reports a failure with the skill's activation, stating that it is not permitted in this area. Realizing that approach is a dead end, he turns to find Sio searching under the table and asks what she's doing. She explains that she has a hunch some kind of device to open the door might be located there, since the only discrepancy between the room and the camera's feed is Alfred's body lying on the table instead of the food. She's convinced the key to their escape must be right here, which gives Jay Hyun a brilliant idea. He immediately activates his mana detection skill, focusing his senses on the table. Sure enough, he picks up on a beam of mana emanating from a plate of pudding, which confirms his suspicions. Locking magic, after all, is fundamentally bound to physical objects or complex calculations. So to break the spell, you must either destroy the anchor object or unravel the calculation. He turns to Sio, informing her that the key has to be inside that pudding. Sio, however, hesitates, clearly spooked by the gruesome image of the real Alfred's corpse on the camera feed. When Jay Hyun taunts her about being scared, she defensively yells that she isn't and promptly shoves her hand into the pudding to search for the key. After a moment of rummaging, she pulls one out, and the system immediately informs them that they have successfully unraveled the second secret the mansion hides, the seal of magic illusion. As a result, they will receive additional rewards upon clearing the dungeon. Meanwhile, the fake Alfred observes the two guests through a scrying pearl in another room, growing concerned that his guests didn't appreciate the meal. He mutters that their hospitality cannot be found lacking, how they treat their guests, promising that he, as Butler Alfred, will ensure the Countess is never disappointed. With that chilling vow, he turns to leave, his maniacal laughter echoing through the halls as Jay Hyun and Sio proceed further into the mansion, making their way to what appears to be a well-lit room. However, the camera reveals the grim truth the room hides, a scene filled with gloom, bloodstains, and abandoned children's toys. They soon spot a door through the lens, which Jay Hyun correctly deduces must be the guest bedroom. When he proposes that they should enter to investigate for anything unusual, Sio recoils in horror at the sight of the blood, but Jay Hyun reminds her of the stakes, pointing out they must find an escape route or risk being trapped in the mansion forever. Reluctantly, she agrees, admitting that she has no desire to remain in this cursed place. Our hero then instructs her to stay quiet and keep her eyes peeled, and to alert him immediately if she spots anything. After cautiously stepping inside, Jay Hyun begins his search for clues. It isn't long before he glances back and freezes, seeing a young girl in a pristine white dress, horribly stained with blood. As he squints to get a better look, he notices that pieces of her face have been crudely torn away, and her mouth has been sewn shut with a thick thread. The spectral girl then slowly points a finger right at him, and in that instant, the phony Alfred materializes directly behind Jay Hyun, completely unnoticed. The next thing he knows, Jay Hyun is waking up to see a strange figure looming over him. He lets out a sharp gasp before realizing it's only Sio. She anxiously asks if he's all right, but he tells her to lower her voice, complaining of a splitting headache. He had anticipated an attack, so he's baffled as to how they actually managed to subdue him, and he can only wonder if this is the intended progression for this particular dungeon. Sio then informs him that she took the opportunity to figure out their current situation by using her cognition accelerant skill. After factoring in the pervasive moss and heavy moisture, she concludes they've been thrown into an underground jail, a place that bears the grim traces of torture all around them. After a moment, Jay Hyun approaches the iron gates, remarking that a key must exist somewhere nearby. He then decides to employ his active skill, silence, to muffle any sound they make, before unleashing a powerful mana-infused punch directly at the gate. Much to Sio's utter astonishment, the gate shatters like flimsy cardboard, a feat worthy of a top student from a magic academy, even cracking the surrounding stone wall. When Sio gasps in disbelief, Jay Hyun quickly shushes her, warning that it'll be disastrous if Alfred, or whatever that thing is, finds them. She sarcastically taunts him about his quiet demolition of the wall, but he curtly tells her to be quiet while he figures out their next move to get out of there. In the middle of his planning, a sudden bark echoes, and Jay Hyun is stunned as a tiny puppy leaps directly into his arms. He wonders what on earth a puppy is doing in a place like this, and then he spots a small key clenched in its jaws. Panicked, Sio immediately tells him to put the puppy down that instant, but Jay Hyun questions her, pointing out that it appears to be a normal puppy in every way, even its mana signature. He guesses that perhaps the little creature was also trapped down here, which would explain the key in its mouth. Seo vehemently protests, arguing that there's no way the dungeon would hand them the key this easily, insisting the puppy must be some kind of trap. But the small dog suddenly begins to growl at her. The puppy's menacing growl silences her instantly, and just then, the system notifies our hero that they have received a brand new quest called Flandier's Diary. The objective for this quest requires them to reach Countess Flandier's room, located on the 4th floor of the mansion, and read the contents of her diary. The mission is rated B rank in difficulty, and the reward is the removal of the theme dungeon's skill locks. As for the failure condition, they'll lose if they die or if the time limit expires before they can complete the task. The 2-hour time limit. Jay Hyun figures that unlocking their skills is a worthy reward, and he speculates that Flandier's room must be connected to the secrets this mansion hides. With that in mind, they stealthily move through the halls until they reach the 3rd floor. But Jay Hyun suddenly halts, admitting he's lost, just as the dog leaps down from his arms. Seo begins to complain about their missing camera, but her words die in her throat when she sees that Jay Hyun is completely frozen in place. She calls out to him, her voice laced with anxiety, asking what's wrong, but when he remains silent, she turns around and comes face to face with the small, blood-stained girl in white that Jay Hyun had previously encountered. Upon closer inspection, her eyes appear to have been gouged out, and her lips are gruesomely sewn shut. Jay Hyun attempts to speak to the apparition, but Seo frantically clutches his shirt, urging him to leave, insisting they have no time for a ghost. However, Jay Hyun shrugs her hand off and directly asks the spectral girl why she lingers here, questioning if she has unresolved regrets tied to this mansion. The spirit simply shakes her head, leading him to ask if she's here to guide them, to which she nods in confirmation. Finally, our hero asks her to locate the room on the 4th floor, and she silently points in the direction just behind them. Jay Hyun expresses his gratitude, promising to help her pass on to the afterlife if the opportunity arises, and asks her to wait for them as they all turn back. And the dog quickly rejoins them. Jay Hyun signals to Seo that it's time to move, but her expression is slightly troubled by the encounter. Meanwhile, back at the theme park, Sunbae Nim is in a meeting with manager Sunji, and he seeks to confirm a crucial point: whether the Lotus Guild would truly assume all responsibility for the incidents related to this themed dungeon. Sunji confirms this is correct, stating he can direct the blame from both the National Raider Association and the public squarely onto the Lotus Guild. In exchange, however, Guildmaster Yuian has one condition: that they release zero information concerning Min Hyun. After a moment of hesitation, Sunbae Nim confesses that he finds it difficult to comprehend why the Lotus Guild would go to such extraordinary lengths for a mere student from the Mills Magic Academy. Sunji replies that he cannot disclose the reasons, so Sunbae Nim reluctantly agrees to the terms, reasoning that they have nothing to lose. Nevertheless, Sunbae Nim then questions what would happen should Min Hyun fail the dungeon raid. Sunji simply assures him that the Lotus Guild would never have invested so much in him if he were the type of person to fail a challenge like this. Back inside the dungeon, Jay Hyun dispatches the last living armor with a single, decisive strike. Seo, watching from nearby, is stunned, as she believed living armors were at least C-rank monsters. Jay Hyun coolly explains that this is the fastest route, dismissing the monsters as trivial. They proceed to open the next door, and the system announces their entry into Flandier's room. Upon stepping inside, they are immediately struck by its intensely creepy atmosphere. Naturally, Seo moves to inspect the desk first, but as she steps forward, Jay Hyun holds her back, pointing out that it's far too obvious for a clue to be on the desk. He suggests they search in places where one wouldn't normally expect to find any hints. And so, after a brief search of the room's odd corners, Jay Hyun discovers it. The system then explains that he has found a diary in which Countess Flandier, the original owner of the mansion, recorded her thoughts each day. The first entry he opens is dated May 7th, in the year 1474. Flandier laments that her skin grows paler with each passing day and that all of her doctor's remedies have proven utterly useless. She wonders if she'll ultimately perish without ever getting a glimpse of the outside world. The year, she details her excited anticipation for her dear parents, who had promised to buy her a coveted doll she'd been longing for from the city. Then, an entry on May 12th turns grim as she writes about receiving a letter informing her that her parents were killed during an attack by thieves. The page is heartbreakingly stained with her tears as she questions if they'd still be alive if she had never asked for that doll. Later, on May 15th, she writes that the funeral has concluded, and she has become the new mistress of the mansion, being the very last of the Flandier bloodline. She confesses that this brings her no happiness at all, because now she is completely and forever alone. In the month of July, another entry dated the 4th day explains how Flandier discovered a girl who was caught taking one of the flowers from her garden. Apparently, this young girl was about her own age and bore a striking resemblance to her doll, so Flandier took an immediate liking to her. She decides she's going to ask the girl to live with her in the mansion. On the 20th of July, Flandier mentions that since the girl had no name, she decided to name her Sally. They began playing together every day inside the mansion, and she expresses immense happiness at finally making a friend, hoping these joyful days will last forever. However, an entry on the 8th of September reveals that Alfred, the butler, left the house without a single word. Sally apparently suggested he must have been in a hurry and gone to the next town, but Flandier expresses a deep anxiety, feeling unsettled because she doesn't understand why he left. An entry for September 10th confirms Alfred has returned, but he seems unsettlingly different. Beyond that, Sally clearly hides a secret from her, and it feels like something terrible must have happened. By November 9th, a new entry describes how Flandier keeps hearing horrific screams inside the mansion. Apparently, the kitchen lady, Sioena, and her maid, Michelle, are the ones screaming. Their voices so raw it sounds as if their throats will tear. She questions if she's merely dreaming, but it all feels too real, and she is utterly terrified. The page is smeared with blood, and in another part of the entry, Flandier frantically writes that Sally and Alfred are now pounding on her bedroom door, and she's absolutely certain they intend to kill her, but she is trapped with no idea what to do. After reading the entire tragic account, the system informs Jay Hyun that the restrictions placed on his skills are now officially lifted. Our hero realizes that Flandier was brutally murdered, and it was almost certainly the work of the monster that had taken over the mansion. He quickly concludes that the monster must be a doppelganger, a creature he'd only read about in text from the *** Magic Academy ***. As he turns to Seo, the horrifying truth dawns on him. A doppelganger has been accompanying him this whole time. Behind the creature, several more copies of Alfred appear, all of them monsters. The system then notifies our hero that he has uncovered the first secret of Alfred's identity, and in doing so, has completed the subquest, Flandier's Diary. The system then informs him that he has successfully unraveled all the secrets of the mansion, and his next task is to escape the estate with his life. Our boy turns to face the monsters, the little puppy standing by his side as moral support. The lead monster unleashes deadly tendrils from its body and lunges forward for the initial attack. In response, Jay Hyun snatches up the puppy and leaps clear of the assault. Our hero smirks at the monster, telling it he's glad it finally dropped the act because he was growing quite tired of its pathetic facade. The monster lets out a chilling laugh and tells him he's surprisingly perceptive for a mere human. But Jay Hyun brushes it off, saying it was no great feat, just the kind of basic deduction you learn at any decent magic academy. Apparently, Jay Hyun could see the creature's true form, piercing through its illusions with ease. In a classic move, our hero then informs the doppelganger that maybe he isn't a genius, perhaps the monster is just remarkably dense. This particular observation deeply offends the doppelganger, which furiously questions how he dares to insult it. In a fit of rage, the monster shatters the overhead lamp and tears through the ceiling, forcing Jay Hyun to beat a hasty retreat. With the creature hot on his heels, our protagonist unleashes his lightning chain, zapping the monster and ripping large holes in its form, though it fails to completely destroy it. Meanwhile, the frantic chase is making the little puppy feel quite sick. You see, this doppelganger is a dangerous B-rank monster, feared for its ability to perfectly mimic another's skills and appearance, a trick it hides behind. However, when you look at its raw combat power alone, it's closer to a C-rank threat. After reforming its body, the monster declares to Jay Hyun that it will devour him and demands he surrender his body. Jay Hyun remains perfectly still, prompting the monster to charge straight at him. Yet Jay Hyun doesn't flinch, not even when the creature is mere inches from his face. As it gets dangerously close, our hero ensnares it in another lightning chain, coolly asking how it feels to be the one getting played for a change. The intense heat from the lightning sears the monster's form, causing it to let out a piercing shriek. As the creature dissolves into a bubbling puddle, it confesses that envy drove it to this point, its greatest desire being to become human. In the end, the intense heat melts right through the floor, and the monster plummets into the darkness below. With the threat gone, Jay Hyun turns his attention to the dog. He compliments its impressive barking skills, remarking that it's a natural-born dog, which strongly implies the dungeon was what transformed Seo into a canine. Making his way to a nearby door, Jay Hyun suddenly spots the spirit of Flyer once more, but this time, she appears exactly as she did in the portrait. She offers him a warm smile and a gentle wave, which makes Jay Hyun smile right back. As he pushes the door open, he bids her a final farewell, and the system announces that he has successfully cleared the second mission. It also notes that he's uncovered all the hidden scenarios, earning him some bonus rewards. In a flash, Jay Hyun and Seo are transported back to the real world, where our hero immediately starts examining his loot. One of the rewards is a skill called Commander's Shout, which boosts allies' morale, increasing their mana and stamina. The second reward is the illusion skill, which, as the name suggests, creates illusions to deceive enemies. Jay Hyun isn't thrilled about Commander's Shout, since he rarely uses support skills for party members, but he's quite fond of the illusion skill, recognizing its potential to completely turn the tables in a fight. Turning to Seo, he's met with a complaint. She says he should have told her he knew she was the puppy all along, adding that she was absolutely terrified something awful was going to happen to her. Jay Hyun just reminds her that she made it out in one piece, but she insists she's still upset. Our hero, ever so sympathetic, tells her to stop whining and get up because they need to head to the next destination. This startles her, as she was clearly hoping for a rest. Surprised by her reaction, he asks if she's tired, pointing out she hasn't done a single thing since they were stuck in that underground cell. In her defense, she explains that she's suffering from mental fatigue. Jay Hyun, showing a rare moment of understanding, agrees but is certain a little movement will cure it. Activating his subordination skill, he commands her to walk, and to her shock, her legs begin moving entirely on their own. As she's forced onward toward the next mission, she lets out a scream of pure frustration, vowing that she will never ever forgive Jay Hyun. After walking for some time, Seo is left gasping for breath and asks Jay Hyun, Is this whole place some kind of twisted parade? Our hero downs a potion and confirms her suspicion, but also warns her to stay sharp, as they have no idea what's coming next. Suddenly, a cheerful voice echoes from hidden speakers, welcoming everyone to the magnificent spectacle of Neverland. Looking ahead, they spot a massive crowd gathered before a stage where the host enthusiastically introduces himself as Bruin. Bruin invites the entire audience to his grand parade, then makes his way directly toward Jay Hyun and Siu to offer a personal welcome. He congratulates them for successfully completing the 2 missions, remarking their performance was worthy of a top-tier magic academy, so Jay Hyun cuts straight to the point, asking him what the last mission is going to be like. Bruin explains that the final challenge is tag, and as he points to a gate, he mentions that this version of the game hides a much darker set of rules.